Capital, when appropriately utilized and needed, can be a real accelerant to a business. When not so much, it can actually be more harm than good. Question for today is, do you really need capital? A lot of times we talk to businesses or people involved with businesses that say we really need capital, and many times that is the case, but sometimes just as often it could be the case that it's the need for capital is kind of the panacea that they're aiming for to solve problems that are not necessarily solved by capital or that can be solved otherwise. And so 5 questions to contemplate when you say, hey, we may need capital. 1, what pain does it actually solve? So if you're going to get the capital, what is the pain that you're going to solve? And then think secondarily to that, can this pain be solved otherwise? 2, what good does it accomplish? So if you're not looking at loss aversion or pain and you're saying this helps us in a way, what does it help you do? And how else would you accomplish that? 3, is validation one of the motivators for this? And that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes having the right type of investor or the right type of capital, the right type of bank involved with your company can be a stamp of approval as you're going to try to accomplish other things. But you do still want to synthesize what is the validation that either A, you're seeking, or B, perhaps you're not seeking, but that will come as part of this, and is that worthwhile? 4, does it actually accelerate the business? And so when you think of capital, we always say the source is where it comes from, but the use is how it's allocated. So if you think of how the allocation of the capital is likely to take place, pinpoint the specific means by which it's going to be utilized and evaluate whether that use is going to accelerate the company towards the goals you're aiming to accomplish. And 5, and this is sometimes more of an inward-looking question, is we say, well, what if you don't get it? What if you don't have it available? And sometimes the lack of ability to get something that we think is going to solve a problem allows us to visualize or to think about or strategize about other ways to accomplish it, other means to the same goal. And so if you said, let's take the hypothetical example that we cannot get any capital, whether debt, equity, or otherwise, what would we do otherwise? Is there a plan otherwise? And think through that. And sometimes the conclusion is no, capital is the only thing that's going to unlock or catalyze what we're trying to accomplish. But other times you say, you know what, we could try this, we could try that. And sometimes those things are worth trying prior to going out and getting the capital. Now look, it's our company's job. Much of what we do is selling businesses. Much of what we do is finding companies' capital, negotiating, structuring, sourcing that capital. And so it is necessary in many situations. However, we do have a framework of questions, of thoughts, and these are really the 5 key prongs to it that we say, do you really need the capital? Are there other avenues to it? And even if there are other avenues for some of the things you're aiming to solve or accomplish, and the capital is still necessary, what it does though is optimize the utilization of capital. And so thinking from the perspective of what are the top 10 things we would spend the capital on, it's probably numbers 1 through 3 and 7 through 10 may be solvable or accomplishable in other ways. But keep in mind, all things have a cost. All capital has a cost. So even during the times when interest rates were 2, 3, 4%, the money still had to be paid back. So if you borrowed a ton of money, even in a hypothetical example that interest rates were 0, and you could borrow money for free, if you borrow that money and then frit it away and then it just goes here and there and it doesn't actually help the business, you still have to pay it back. It's still a liability. When people say it's just as good as free money, that's not the case, because it always has to be paid back. The piper always has to be paid, whether there's interest, whether there's structure to it, whatever the case may be. And so again, we always think of capital, sources and uses. Source, where we're going to find it, use, what we're going to use it on. Go through these 5 questions to determine, do you really need the capital? What pain does it solve? What goals does it accomplish? Is there validation to the capital, and is that valuable? Does it actually accelerate the business? Lastly, what would you do otherwise? What would the emergency plan be? Because sometimes, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention, and it's not that dissimilar in business oftentimes. That's a thought for today. Hope the week continues to go well. Keep pushing forward. God bless. We'll see everyone next time.